Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. Hope everybody enjoyed their weekend. Resident Evil Village just launched, so I'm sure a lot of you are playing that. I just started it myself, and it seems pretty good so far. A little more action-packed than what I was expecting, but I still like it, and let me know how you've been liking Village so far. We do have a lot to talk about today, though. The PS5 scalping situation is getting absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we've known about this for a while, but now we're getting some concrete numbers, and it really is just absolutely absurd. So we're going to talk about that today, plus a secret Xbox game looks to be in development by Bethesda. This might be a big one as well, so we're going to talk about all that and plenty more. Today, though, let's get started off with an update for the Coalition's next game. The Coalition, of course, is the Gears of War studio, and there's a lot of news coming from them here recently. Last week, we talked about a rumor that they're working on a new IP, or possibly even Star Wars. That is coming from a notable insider, Jeff Grubb, which has accurately leaked a lot of different things over the last 12 or so months. Now, he did say that he wasn't sure about the Star Wars stuff, and he seemed to lean heavily towards the idea that the Coalition was working on a new IP. Well, now thanks to the Gears of War senior community manager, it has now been confirmed that they're not working on a Star Wars game after all. They did deny that particular rumor. They, however, did not deny that they're working on a new IP, though. So if Jeff Grubb's information is in fact correct, then the Coalition is working on a new IP alongside Gear 6, and I don't know about you, but I think that is incredibly exciting. I mean, sorry for those who were hoping for a Star Wars game, but truthfully, I prefer this personally. I want to see what they can do with their own original world because they're extremely talented, as we've seen in the past. And also, the Coalition, previously known as Black Tusk Studios, was originally formed to make new IP. So now they might actually get that chance if they really are working on a second game. They did say in their newsletter that they're working on multiple new projects in the coming years, so this could actually be happening. And that's not all. They also announced that they'll be moving to Unreal Engine 5 for next generation development. I mean, the Coalition always pushes the bar in terms of visuals. In fact, Gears Hivebusters is one of the best looking games on the Xbox Series X as of this moment, so it's going to be exciting to see what they can do with Unreal Engine 5. I expect Gears 6, and hopefully that new IP as well, to look simply stunning when we eventually see them. Next up, let's talk about Metroid. 2021 is the 35th anniversary for Metroid, and I know there's been some hope that we get some kind of Metroid announcement here soon. Of course, Metroid Prime 4 won't be ready for its 35th anniversary, but there has been a lot of speculation that Nintendo will release a Metroid Prime Trilogy for the Switch before Prime 4 releases. That way they could celebrate Metroid all while leading up to that Prime 4 release. And that's the thing, as we've seen time and time again, when Nintendo ports their old games to the Switch, they do so much better because the Switch really is just that popular. Really, I think when Metroid Prime 4 does eventually release, it's going to push some major numbers. I think it possibly will end up being the best-selling Metroid Prime, and that will be huge for the franchise going forward. We'll see what happens with all that, but a former retro developer did speak out on his thoughts about the possibility of a Metroid Prime trilogy on the Switch, and he seemed really skeptical that it would happen because Metroid Prime 3 would take a Herculean effort to convert its controls to a more normal control method. He also said the biggest issue is that Retro Studios no longer has functional editor tools to work with the Prime code base, so everything has to be brute force hard-coded. So yeah, that's not exactly what you want to hear. However, it's also important to keep in mind that this is not confirmation, but rather it's just skepticism due to the difficulty. It certainly sounds like if Nintendo did do this, it could be rather time-consuming, as he believes it would take around 4 to 5 years. They might not exactly want to dedicate the resources to do something like that for an extended amount of time, but at the same time, Nintendo did manage to bring Skyward Sword to the Switch. That is yet another game that was built around the Wii's motion controls, so it is possible that they could still do something like that with Metroid Prime 3. Of course, these are two different games with entirely different situations though. Now, with that said, I do hope Nintendo celebrates Metroid's 35th anniversary in some way. There is a rumor that Mercury Steam is working on a 2D Metroid, so hopefully that's at least true. Now, we also got some UK sales numbers to talk about. Resident Evil Village opened up being the #1 best-selling game for the week in the UK, beating out new Pokemon Snap, and that's only a part of this story. It's actually much more impressive than just that. Resident Evil Village is now the second best box launch of the entire year behind Mario Bowser's Fury, so that is a pretty great launch. Resident Evil Village did have an interesting split, however. 20% of box sales were on Xbox, 31% was on PS4, and then the big surprise, 49% was on the PlayStation 5. I wasn't expecting that, but it is a good sign that in the UK there's actual customers getting their hands on the PS5. We'll actually talk about that more in just a bit, but yeah, Capcom has just been having a lot of success here recently, and deservedly so. They did just post their fiscal year report, and it was a record-breaking year for them in terms of profit. This is in large part because of Monster Hunter Rise, but also the continued success of Monster Hunter World with some new releases such as Resident Evil 3 and Devil May Cry 5 for next-generation consoles. Yeah, Capcom has been one of the best publishers in recent years, and they're getting off to another hot start with Resident Evil Village. Unfortunately though, the PS5 exclusive Returnal seems to have had a pretty major drop-off in the UK charts. It dropped by 84% and it now claims the 15th best-selling game for the week after being number 2 last week. Yeah, we've talked about this a few times, but this was the concern. How will a game like this sell in the long term? Returnal is a unique game, being a AAA roguelike game. It is intimidating and it's also expensive on top of that. A lot of people were not on board with Returnal being a $70 game, and it's just a hard sell compared to some of Sony's other first-party games. I mean, just for comparison's sake, Resident Evil Village is a $60 game compared to Returnal that's $70. Resident Evil is an extremely popular franchise that's cheaper than Returnal, and that's not a good look. And even though Returnal is a good game that reviewed well, this stuff could affect its long-term growth. Now, there's also been some complaints among customers who aren't happy about its save system and some bugs that popped up along the way, so I could see some fans holding off until they get that fixed up. I still hope Returnal succeeds though, because again, Housemarque is talented and Returnal is a good overall game. Sony might need to reconsider their pricing on some of their games though. I think Returnal could have had some more success at a cheaper launch price. What I will say though is I'm really happy to see new Pokemon Snap do good for the second week in a row, claiming that number 2 spot. To see Pokemon Snap return after being gone for 21 years with that type of success is so satisfying. Maybe Nintendo needs to listen to their fanbase a little more often when asking for these old games to come back. Now, speaking of the PS5 a moment ago, even though Resident Evil Village is having a lot of success with the PS5, scalping is still absolutely a problem. If you've been hunting down a PS5, you probably know it's very difficult as it sells out within minutes. The Xbox Series is in a similar situation as well. This is a combination of several different factors though. The demand for these next-generation consoles are incredibly high, but also as of this moment, they're strictly being sold online. This has led to a lot of problems. Online retailers do not seem prepared for the incoming traffic for these consoles when they drop online. Even just getting these consoles in your cart is an accomplishment all on its own. So that's an issue, but alongside real customers, there's also bots and scalpers trying to purchase as many consoles as they can so they can take advantage of the situation where they sell these consoles for well above market price. I think this is just absolutely ridiculous and absurd, and it's definitely frustrating for real customers, but people are buying them from scalpers as, again, they are in high demand. That's why scalpers will continue to do this. I personally think that there needs to be some regulations with this type of stuff, but it is what it is. The big question though is how many consoles are actually being scalped? Well, StockX, which is a popular reseller website, let it be known that they have sold more than 130,000 PS5s. That is crazy, and this doesn't even include other reseller websites such as eBay. As the Video Game Chronicles pointed out, just in the first month of the PS5's life, it sold 60,000 units on eBay. So yeah, I'm sure that number is way up by this point. It's really hard to tell how many PS5s have been resold by scalpers by this point, but from just the numbers that we know, we can at least say 200,000 PS5s have been resold, and it's most certainly way above that by this point. So yeah, this is definitely one of the reasons it's so difficult getting a PlayStation 5 right now. It's not impossible, however. I actually got two, one for me and one for my friends, so it is possible, and I think if you're committed to getting a PS5, you can do it. I'd recommend following some PS5 drop alert Twitter accounts and turning their notifications on. Jake Randall is a great source for that, and you can also download an app on your phone like Hotstock, which will alert you when a device you want goes online. Most importantly though, from my own personal experience, when a drop happens, do not leave the website when it says that console goes out of stock. They do these drops in waves, and I've heard that the first drop is small because they want to offload a lot of the incoming traffic, as many customers will just give up when they see it's sold out. Nonetheless though, just hearing that 200+ thousand PS5s have already been resold is just frustrating. I mean, this really is ridiculous. Hopefully we see some kind of improvement throughout the year. Moving on though, Xbox might have yet another secret game in development over at Bethesda. It's actually kind of hard to keep up with all this by this point because, I mean, Xbox has 23 studios now with various developers working on multiple games. Yeah, Xbox just has a lot happening, and well, Bethesda is one of those studios. We know for a fact that they're working on Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, which will be massive releases for Xbox, but it sounds like their Austin Bethesda studio has a third unannounced game in development. This is coming from a job listing looking for a qualified server engineer for an unannounced AAA title. Now, even though we don't know what this studio is working on per se, there is some speculation that this could be the next Fallout. The job listing does mention you need a strong familiarity with Bethesda Game Studios games, so it does sound like whatever they're working on is possibly an already existing IP. Well, the Austin studio did work on Fallout 76, so I mean, they have experience with the Fallout franchise, so maybe they're working on another Fallout game. That could be interesting. If Bethesda could somehow release a new Elder Scrolls, a new Fallout, and Starfield all in the same generation, that would be huge for Xbox Game Pass and the Xbox Series. But that's just speculation. I mean, we really don't know much about this game at all, but it is exciting to see considering how beloved Bethesda games are. What I will say though is it once again looks like Xbox made the right decision in acquiring Bethesda. I mean, they just have so many big IP, and I think Bethesda is going to do so much for the Xbox brand over this generation, as they do look to release several big games in the next couple years. Let me know in the comments below on what you hope this unannounced game is though. And before we go, let's take a look at the poll of the day. E3 is almost upon us, so I wanted to know what you all are most excited for outside of Nintendo and Xbox. What third-party publisher are you most looking forward to seeing at E3? And you all actually voted for Ubisoft. And okay, they have some big upcoming games. They have Far Cry 6 and Rainbow Six Quarantine. We'll likely see those at E3, which is definitely exciting, but if I were to make a wish list, what I'd really like to see from them is a new Splinter Cell, Rayman, maybe another Mario and Rabbids, and could we please get an update on Beyond Good and Evil 2? I mean, what happened with that game? I don't know. For me, though, I'm curious to see what Capcom, Sega, and Square Enix has. I think Capcom has just done such a great job in recent years, and I want to see more of what they have planned. I know a lot of that information did leak online, but I want to see some trailers. And then you have Square Enix, which has all of these huge IP. Maybe they have something exciting we don't already know about. Even Bandai Namco with Elden Ring is an interesting choice. That could end up being a game that takes over E3. All I know, though, is I'm excited for E3. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.